The box was small. Plain brown, taped neatly, tucked behind a potted fern on their front porch like it was hiding from someone. Jim noticed it on his way back from the gym, sun still rising over the trees, air thick with the kind of quiet that usually meant peace. But today it felt like warning. He picked it up. No markings except a boutique logo he didn't recognize, Elon Intimates. Light. Expensive feeling. His wife, Marissa, usually told him about her online orders, especially the ones she was excited about. Shoes. Spa kits. Those weird imported teas. But this? She hadn't said a word. Inside the house, Marissa was still asleep, hair a dark spill across her pillow, one leg kicked free from the sheets. She always slept like that, recklessly. Jim stood in the kitchen, the package unopened on the counter. Something about it itched at the edges of his mind. He poured a cup of coffee, stared at it for a long while, then peeled back the tape. Lingerie. Deep red. Lace so fine it looked like it could vanish in steam. A matching set, delicate, bold, intimate in a way that didn't match anything she'd ever worn with him. He lifted the receipt folded beneath it, expecting the usual details. But what he found instead was a note, scrawled across the bottom in flowing black ink. For you, Alex Kissmark. Jim blinked. Then he read it again. And again. The paper trembled in his hand, not from rage, not yet, but from something colder, sharper. Something like recognition. Because his name wasn't Alex. His name was Jim. She was the kind of woman people noticed without meaning to. Marissa moved like someone who owned every room she entered, hips swaying with a quiet rhythm, eyes sharp but amused, like she knew a joke no one else had heard yet. Her hair was black as ink and cut just below the jaw, sleek and angular. She always smelled faintly of jasmine and smoke, a mix of perfume and cigarettes she never quite admitted to. The tiger tattoo on her left arm, inked from shoulder to elbow, was her signature. A stalking, coiled beast with amber eyes and bared teeth. She got it the year she turned 30, said it was for her, though she never explained what that meant. Jim remembered tracing it with his fingers the night she came home freshly wrapped in gauze, the skin around it red and sore. She had laughed, low and satisfied, like she'd conquered something. They met 7 years ago at a gallery opening downtown. Jim was helping a friend install a steel sculpture, Marissa was there alone, in a green silk dress with a wine glass she never refilled. She told him she was tired of men who tried too hard to impress her. Jim didn't try. He just listened. She liked that. Their marriage was quiet at first, nights in, walks through the neighborhood, bare feet on hardwood floors. They'd lie on the couch with records playing, his hand on her hip, her head on his chest. Marissa said she didn't want kids. She didn't believe in mortgages. She hated routine. And still, Jim tried to build a life for them, a modest one, with quiet weekends, joint accounts, the occasional weekend away in the mountains. He worked in construction management, concrete, steel, blueprints. He believed in stability, even when she didn't. Over time, Marissa adapted. Or at least, she pretended to. She traded silk for cotton, wild nights for slow mornings, cigarettes for the occasional herbal tea. She said she loved him. And most days, he believed her. But not this one. The red lace from the package was unlike anything she ever wore for him. She had a thing for comfort, soft bralettes, boys' shorts, maybe the occasional black set if she felt daring. But this wasn't comfort. This was theater. Seduction. A performance meant for someone else. Jim stared at the receipt again, still sitting there on the kitchen counter. For you, Alex Kissmark. It wasn't just the name. It was the kiss mark. The way it was written. It felt intimate, familiar. Not just a gift, it was a message. A whisper of something deeper, something blooming quietly behind his back. He didn't wake her. Instead, He set the note back inside the box and retaped it, just as neatly as he'd found it. Then he made her coffee, 2 sugars, dash of oat milk, and placed it by the bed. Marissa stirred as he walked away, mumbled something into the pillow. Morning. Her voice was thick with sleep, careless. Jim smiled as if nothing had changed. Morning, he said back, calm and easy. But inside, something cold had taken root. That night, over dinner, pan-seared salmon, sautéed spinach, a glass of white, he watched her more closely than he ever had before. She talked about a new gallery she wanted to see on the east side. She'd been painting again. She said it like she was proud, like she was letting him in. But her hands kept brushing her phone. Her eyes darted to it every time it buzzed against the table. She didn't offer to show him anything she'd painted. She didn't ask about his day. Who's Alex? He asked softly. The fork paused halfway to her lips. She looked up, blinked. What? I saw a note. In a package. Said, for you, Alex. He took a bite of his salmon, chewed slowly. I just thought maybe it was a mistake. Marissa set her fork down. Oh, that, she said, with a small laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. It's for a friend. She's dating a guy named Alex. I just picked it up for her. She didn't want it delivered to her place because, you know. Because what? She lives with her sister, Marissa replied quickly. It's complicated. Jim nodded, like it made sense. Like everything still made sense. She poured herself more wine, shoulders easing. You really think I'd buy something like that for someone else? I don't know, Jim said. I've never seen you wear anything like that. She smiled. A slow, lazy thing. Maybe I was going to surprise you. The tiger on her arm shifted as she raised her glass. Her bare skin caught the light, golden against the candle glow. She looked radiant. Mysterious. Untouchable. Jim raised his glass too, his knuckles white around the stem. To lies, he thought. But out loud, he said, to surprises. It was a Tuesday afternoon when everything started to tilt. Jim's old friend, Marco, was the kind of man who noticed everything without looking like he noticed anything at all. A retired paramedic with a bum knee and too much time on his hands, he'd taken up photography after retirement, said it helped him keep still and stay sane. He liked people watching, candid shots, the little stories that played out when nobody thought they were being seen. He and Jim had a standing coffee date every other Thursday, but that week he texted him early, out of nowhere. Marco, you busy? Need to talk. Weird thing happened. Jim replied quickly. Jim, I'm free. What's up? Marco asked to meet at a quiet bar near the edge of town. They used to go there when they were younger, back when the jukebox still worked and the wings were $3 a dozen. Jim walked in expecting idle gossip, maybe a story about a neighbor's new affair or another near-death experience Marco liked to retell. But when he slid into the booth across from him, Marco didn't smile. Jim, he said, voice low. I need to ask you something, and I want you to answer me straight. Jim nodded. Go ahead. Does Marissa have a tattoo? Marco asked. Like, something big. On her arm. Jim blinked. Yeah. Tiger. Left side. Why? Marco's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightened. I thought so, he said. I saw her. Yesterday. Jim stiffened. Where? There's this cafe out past Mayfield, near the hills. Kind of hidden. Good light for photos, decent pastries. I like to go there on Tuesdays, less crowded. I was sitting outside, working on a new lens, and I saw her. With who? Marco leaned forward. Not you. That landed like a slap. Jim's throat dried out. Are you sure it was her? I saw the tattoo, Marco said. She was wearing a black dress, short sleeves. The tiger was right there on her arm. You don't forget something like that. Jim swallowed. What were they doing? Marco exhaled slowly. Talking at first. Real close. Then laughing. She touched his hand. He touched her face. Then they kissed. Jim stared at the grainy wood of the table, his fingers curling into fists in his lap. I didn't want to believe it, Marco said. Hell, I almost convinced myself it was just someone who looked like her. But then she turned, and I saw her eyes. I've seen her a dozen times, man. That was her. Jim sat in silence. The noise of the bar faded into a low, underwater hum. He tried to picture it, Marissa at some far-flung cafe with another man. Her smile. Her eyes. Her hands on someone else's face. The red lace lingerie flashed behind his eyes like a cruel punchline. Did you get a photo? Jim asked. Marco looked away. No. I thought about it. But it didn't feel right. Jim nodded. It wasn't anger he felt. Not yet. Not even betrayal. It was something slower, heavier, like the weight of concrete hardening around his chest. Confirmation. Cold, quiet, undeniable. She saw me, Marco added. On the way out. I think she recognized me. Her face changed. She tried to act like she didn't. But she did. Jim rubbed his face with both hands, trying to breathe. His voice came out dry and flat. What did the guy look like? Marco tilted his head. Younger. Maybe late 20s. Leather jacket. Sunglasses. Tall. Smiled a lot. That's what I remember most. He kept smiling like he'd won something. A pause stretched between them. Then Marco said, I'm sorry, man. Jim gave a hollow laugh. Don't be. You didn't kiss her. He stood, barely aware of the movement. Marco didn't stop him. Outside, the air was sharp and biting. Jim leaned against the side of the building, staring out at nothing. He thought of all the Tuesday evenings Marissa had come home late. Work ran over, she'd said. I had to stay and help hang a piece, she said. I just needed a little space. He thought of the tiger, the one she claimed meant independence or protection. How he used to joke that it looked like it would leap off her arm and bite anyone who crossed her. Now he wondered if the damn thing had always been snarling at him. It was supposed to be over. One sighting. One mistake. Maybe she slipped, maybe she lost her mind for a moment and kissed someone she barely knew. Jim wanted to believe that. Needed to. But lies don't float alone. They drag things with them. It was 3 days later when the second blow landed. Another text from Marco. Marco, I didn't want to get involved again. But I saw her. Just now. With him. Jim felt a surge of something animal rise in his chest. He called immediately. Marco picked up on the first ring. Where? Jim demanded. North Side. The strip near Pine. The high-end lingerie place, Bella Marie. I was walking past the storefront, and they were in there, man. Jim couldn't speak. Marco continued. I almost didn't recognize her. She was wearing this red coat, high collar. Hair pinned up. But then I saw the tattoo. Her arm brushed his when they were laughing at something. That tiger just stared back at me like it knew. Jim closed his eyes. I didn't say anything, Marco said. Didn't want to make it worse. But I thought you should know. You were right, Jim said, voice hoarse. Thanks. He hung up, and the room fell into silence. It was past 9 when Marissa got home that night. Jim was sitting at the kitchen table, pretending to read the news on his phone. She breezed in like nothing was wrong, cheeks flushed, wind in her hair, that red coat still clinging to her shoulders. She kissed his cheek. A quick, practiced motion. "Long day?" he asked, keeping his tone light. "The worst," she groaned, slipping out of her heels. "We're behind on everything." Two artists flaked. "I was at the gallery until 10. Jim nodded. "You didn't call." She smiled vaguely. "My phone died. I didn't want to stress you out." "Of course," he said. "I trust you." And even as he said it, his stomach turned. That night, Jim lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. Marissa's back was to him. She was already asleep, or pretending. The tiger on her arm peeked out from beneath the sheets, coiled in shadow. His thoughts spiraled. He knew what he had to do. The next day, Jim faked a meeting. Told his team he had a family emergency and wouldn't be reachable. Then he waited. Watched. At 8:45 a.m., Marissa left the house in a navy coat, hair tucked beneath a beret. She looked elegant. Almost cinematic. She didn't kiss him goodbye. He followed 5 minutes behind, keeping 2 car lengths back, slipping into traffic when she turned left toward the east side. She didn't go to the gallery. She didn't even slow near it. Instead, she took the winding drive up toward Franklin Ridge, the more secluded part of town. Fewer shops. More trees. Quiet streets where people went to hide. Jim gripped the wheel tighter with every turn. She finally pulled into a cafe he didn't recognize. Tucked behind a florist and a boutique wine shop. She parked. Sat for a minute. Checked her lipstick in the mirror. Then he arrived. A dark car, slick and low to the ground. A man stepped out, tall, confident. No rush in his stride. He walked to her side of the car like he'd done it 100 times. She stepped out. They didn't speak at first. Just looked at each other. She touched his jacket lightly. He kissed her cheek, slow. Intimate. And then they walked inside together, side by side. Jim didn't follow. Not yet. He sat across the street, watching the windows through the reflection on his windshield. He saw silhouettes, gestures, outlines of something that used to be his. The rage didn't come all at once. It arrived quietly. Like a hand around his throat. That night, she came home humming. Humming. The audacity of it made Jim's skin crawl. She dropped her coat over a chair, stretched like a cat, then poured herself a glass of wine. Jim was standing in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. "Good day?" he asked without turning. "The best," she said. "Things are finally falling into place." "I bet they are." She didn't catch the venom in his voice. Or chose not to. He kept chopping. And somewhere beneath the rhythm of the knife, his pulse pounded a single, seething thought. Who the hell is Alex? The next morning, Jim woke up before Marissa. The house was dim, the light barely creeping through the blinds. Her breathing was even beside him. Innocent. Undisturbed. Her tiger tattoo peeked out from under the bedsheet like it was sleeping too. He stared at the ceiling for a long while. Then he got up, showered, dressed in silence. He didn't bother with breakfast. Didn't leave a note. By 9:05 a.m., he was parked in the same spot across from the cafe. The same place where, just a day earlier, he'd watched his wife kiss another man like it was second nature. Like it was theirs. He sat there for a moment longer than necessary, palms pressed against the steering wheel. His reflection stared back from the windshield, tired eyes, lines deeper than they used to be. He looked older than he felt. Older than he ever wanted to be. Finally, he stepped out, crossed the street, and walked through the door. A bell chimed overhead. The cafe was warm, sunlight slanting across wood floors, the smell of espresso and fresh pastries wrapping around him like a trap. The space was too quaint, too innocent for what it had witnessed. A betrayal that smelled like vanilla and cinnamon. The barista behind the counter, a girl in her 20s, dark hair in a bun, name tag that read Lara, smiled at him. "Hey there," she said. "What can I get you?" "Coffee," Jim said. "Black." "You got it." She turned to pour. He scanned the room. 2 older women were chatting near the window. A man in a suit hunched over a laptop in the corner. No Marissa. No him. Just empty chairs and the faint echo of secrets. The barista set the cup down gently. "Haven't seen you before," she said. "You from around here?" Jim nodded slowly. "Sort of." She smiled again, tilting her head. "Well, your wife's a regular." The words hit like a slap. He looked up. "I'm sorry," he said. Lara laughed softly, pouring steamed milk into another cup. "Your wife. The one with the tattoo, right? On her arm?" Jim said nothing. Just stared. "She's in all the time," Lara continued, oblivious. "Came by this morning, actually. Just after 8. Same guy she's always with. Tall. Black jacket. Real sharp jawline." Jim's mouth felt dry. His voice dropped an octave. "Did she say his name?" The barista squinted, thoughtful. "Yeah, actually. He made the reservation last week. Name was Alex. That's her usual, right? Marissa and Alex." She smiled again, like it meant nothing. Just a name. But for Jim, it was everything. Marissa. And Alex. A name to the shadow. A form to the fog. No longer just a suspicion. No longer just a scrawl of ink on a receipt. Now he had something real. Tangible. Something he could hunt. He thanked the barista, paid in cash, and stepped outside without touching the coffee. The air was colder now. Harsher. He leaned against the brick wall of the cafe, heart pounding in his ears, teeth clenched so tight his jaw ached. Alex. Of course it was Alex. He could see the man clearly now. The smirk. The easy confidence. The way Marissa leaned into him like he was gravity. Not a fling. Not a mistake. A second life. Jim stood there for a long time, cars passing in waves behind him, people drifting by unaware. And inside, something shifted. The heartbreak didn't come in a roar. It came in a whisper. A woman he knew better than anyone had been lying to his face, every day, with the softness of a kiss and the ease of a laugh. She came home smelling like that cafe, like butter and espresso, and he thought it was work. All those nights she said she was late, all those Tuesdays she came home glowing from something she said was a successful gallery pitch. All of it was Alex. Not business. Not errands. Love. Or something that looked like it. He took one last glance back through the cafe window. Lara was laughing now, chatting with the suited man near the register. Marissa had made herself at home in this place. She had a routine. A rhythm. A whole story with someone else in a corner of the world Jim had never been invited into. He turned and walked back to the car, wind pulling at his coat, eyes locked on the horizon but seeing nothing. He now had a name. And he had a question. Not what she did. But why? And how long? By Friday morning, Jim had his plan in place. He sat across the table from Marissa, sipping coffee, the same way he had every morning for the past 7 years. She was scrolling through her phone, absently nodding at whatever he was saying, like she always did when she was only half listening. He studied her face. How many times had she lied with that same expression? That same ease? "I was thinking we should go away this weekend," he said casually. Just the two of us. Maybe the cabin up by Clearwater Lake. That made her look up. Really? She asked, blinking. Out of nowhere. Jim smiled, made it soft and nostalgic. I miss you, he said. Thought some time alone might help us reconnect. She hesitated, but not too long. That told him everything. I'd love that, she said, leaning over to kiss his cheek. God, yes. I need a break. The lie sat in her mouth like it belonged there. That night, Jim packed a small duffel bag, left it by the door, even went as far as reserving the cabin online just in case she checked. He kissed her goodbye Saturday morning, told her he had an early contractor meeting before they hit the road. Then he drove 2 blocks, parked, and waited. She left 20 minutes later, no luggage, no overnight bag. Just her red coat and her phone. She moved quickly. Confident. Like someone slipping into a second skin. She wasn't going anywhere near Clearwater. He followed. She didn't head east, toward the cabin. She went west. Back toward the city. Toward that same quiet cafe on Pine. But this time, she didn't stop there. She kept going. Downtown. Into the heart of the city. She parked near a row of brick buildings, old offices above shops that had seen better days. Jim pulled over a block away and watched from his car. She stood on the sidewalk, checking her reflection in the shop window, fixing her lipstick. Then Alex pulled up. Same car. Same leather jacket. He leaned across the passenger seat, opened the door for her. She didn't hesitate. They drove off. Jim followed again, careful. They weaved through the industrial side of town until they stopped at a parking garage near a warehouse. Jim parked 2 levels up and watched from above as they walked together down a dim corridor. Then something strange happened. Alex didn't touch her. No arm around her waist. No kiss. He kept his distance. His body language had changed. Rigid. Like a man in a negotiation, not a romance. They entered a side door. Jim couldn't follow, not without being seen. He waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. At the 30-minute mark, they emerged. Marissa was holding something, a small brown envelope. She handed it to Alex. He looked inside, nodded once, then walked away without a word. No smile. No glance back. Just gone. Jim stared through the windshield, pulse like a metronome. What the hell was that? The next day, Sunday, Jim made his move. He drove to Marissa's gallery just before noon. She'd told him she was meeting a client uptown. Said she'd be gone most of the day. But her car was there. The building looked closed from the outside. Lights off. Shades drawn. But Jim knew her office was in the back, facing the alley. He parked discreetly and walked around. And that's when he saw it. Not Alex. Someone else. A man he didn't recognize. Gray jacket, older, balding slightly. Not stylish. Not charming. Just, average. Anonymous. But Marissa was standing with him outside the gallery's back door. She was holding another envelope. She handed it to him. He opened it, flipped through the contents, cash, from the look of it, and tucked it into his coat without a word. Marissa touched his arm briefly, said something low. He nodded, looked over his shoulder, and walked to a nondescript car parked nearby. No kiss. No intimacy. But the tension was there. Sharp. Silent. Jim stayed frozen behind a dumpster, watching it all. His mind was running 100 miles an hour. This wasn't about love. It wasn't even about cheating, at least not just that. Something deeper was at play. Money. Secrecy. Control. Back home that night, Marissa returned just after 8. She smelled like fresh air and wine. She kissed Jim's cheek like she always did and curled up on the couch beside him like nothing had changed. And he let her. He tucked the confusion behind his smile, wrapped the chaos in calm, and simply asked, "Did your meeting go well?" She nodded. Better than expected. He studied her. And for the first time, he wasn't sure who she was. Was Alex the lover? Was the man from the alley the blackmailer? Or was Marissa the one orchestrating the whole thing? Maybe she wasn't the victim at all. Maybe she was the one holding every string. The morning was brittle. Pale sky. Frost dusting the mailbox. A silence so deep Jim could hear the hum of his own breath. He pulled on his jacket, opened the mailbox like he always did, expecting bills, junk, nothing meaningful. But there it was. A single envelope. No stamp. No return address. Just his name, printed in bold black ink. Jim. He tore it open on the porch, fingers already trembling. Inside was a sheet of paper. One line. "You don't know what she really did. But if you want to live, stay out of it." No signature. No clue. Just a warning. He stood there for a long time, frozen. The letter felt heavier than paper had any right to be. He went back inside, locked the door behind him, deadbolt too, for the first time in years, and walked into the kitchen. The coffee was already brewing. A soft, homey sound that now felt like a joke. Like a soundtrack to a life that never existed. When Marissa came down the stairs, hair still damp from the shower, she looked like a dream. Or a memory. Barefoot, robe tied loosely at the waist, eyes soft with sleep. The kind of beauty people wrote songs about, dangerous because it was so easy to believe in. He waited until she poured her tea. Then he pulled out a chair and said quietly, "Sit." She raised a brow. But she did. No yelling. No theatrics. Just a single, calm question. "Who are you, really?" And for a long moment, she said nothing. She just smiled, soft, almost warm. Then. "I knew who you were. Before we met. Before the gallery. Before the coffee shop." Her voice was steady. Clear. "I knew about your father's inheritance. About the land in the city center your family still holds in trust. About the account in the Swiss bank your uncle helped open in 2004. I knew you were easy to live with. You listened. You didn't ask questions. You were perfect." Jim's throat closed around silence. She went on. "Alex was part of the plan. We mapped everything. How to gain your trust. How to keep you looking in all the wrong directions. How to make you fall for the idea of me. And you did." She leaned back in the chair, studying him. "But somewhere along the line. I stopped following the plan." A long pause. Then, softer. "I didn't fall in love with him. I fell in love with the game." She stood. Graceful. No apology in her eyes. No fear. It was like flying. Being inside a story where everyone's looking at the wrong villain. "You thought I was playing with fire." Her smile sharpened into something else. Almost pity. "In fact, I was the fire." Jim didn't move. Couldn't. She touched his shoulder once, lightly, like they were still lovers, like the past wasn't in ashes between them. Then she went upstairs. He didn't hear the door close. He didn't hear her leave. When he went up later, she was gone. Not a bag packed. No suitcase missing. Just her phone, smashed and discarded in the trash can like an afterthought. Her credit cards deactivated. Her email wiped. No trace of her car. No note. Not this time. Just, absence. He called the police. Gave them everything. The name Alex. The warning letter. The man in the gray coat. Her visits to the cafe. The envelopes. Even the inheritance details he'd kept quiet for years. They filed a report. But there was nothing to find. No prints. No paper trail. No footage. It was as if she'd melted back into the shadows she'd always come from. 3 days later, at 3:14 a.m., his phone buzzed on the nightstand. Unknown number. One message. Thank you for everything. Don't look for me. I left you everything you need. No name. But he knew who it was. He read it again. And again. And again. He should have deleted it. Instead, he stared at it until the sun rose, holding the phone like it might burn through his hands. Weeks passed. He filed the estate claims. The bank accounts. The land deeds. She hadn't taken a cent. She hadn't forged anything. She hadn't emptied anything. Every asset, every inheritance, was untouched. Preserved. Waiting. She hadn't wanted his money. She'd wanted the illusion of needing it. The illusion of being near it. The game. The danger. The deception. The control. He finally understood. She was never a thief. She was something worse. A mirror. She gave people exactly what they wanted to see. A wife. A lover. A muse. And once they believed it, she burned the truth behind her like a bridge made of gasoline. Jim sat alone on the back porch weeks later, watching a slow dusk fall over the trees. The breeze was soft. Birds moving overhead like nothing had changed. But he was different now. He had no answers. No revenge. Only the echo of a woman who disappeared like smoke, and a single sentence that still rang in his bones. I thought she was playing with fire. In fact, she was.